Thousands of listeners across the nation rely on Garden Variety to grow everything better. And we rely on listener support to sustain our little garden of knowledge. You can help Garden Variety flourish with a gift today. Donate now at ipr.org/donate.
This is Garden Variety, a horticulture podcast from Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I'm Charity Nebbe. A lot of people grow raspberries, strawberries, and cherries, but you could be the talk of the neighborhood if you decide to grow kiwi berries. They are bite-sized, smooth-skinned fruits that look like mini versions of kiwi fruits. And yes, you can grow them here. Suzanne Slack, fruit specialist and assistant professor of horticulture at Iowa State University, is here to tell us all about them. Hello, Suzanne.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And first of all, I described what kiwi berries look like. How big are they?
Yeah, they're pretty much the size of a big grape.
Okay. And do you just pop them in your mouth and eat them?
Yeah, that's the best thing about them. So you don't have to peel them. You don't have to worry about the skin. You just pop them in your mouth like a grape, and they're kiwi.
And do they taste like the larger kiwi fruit?
They do.
And if you cut them open, they look like kiwi fruit on the inside.
Yes. When I first heard about them, I honestly thought it was photoshopped, but it's not.
All right. Where do they come from?
They come from Asia, so they're pretty much grown in Japan, China, Russia, that kind of region of the world.
And you can grow them in Iowa. Tell me a little bit about the plant.
Yeah, so hardy kiwi, it was actually originally brought in as an ornamental. It makes a really pretty foliage. It's a really pretty vine, looks really pretty on an arbor. And over time, people realized, hey, they taste like kiwis. Some of them are a little bitter, and they've been bred selectively to be actually pretty good and taste like kiwis.
All right, so it's a vine.
Yes.
What kind of space does it need?
That is probably the limiting factor with this plant. So it needs a pretty large arbor or fruiting wall, so usually 12 feet by 6 feet, and you can kind of decide the dimensions. For commercial or trying to grow them for fruit, 6 feet tall with like a 12-foot either spacing, either like make an actual arbor or like a fruiting wall to make sure that vine has enough room to grow.
All right, so that would be a big challenge for a lot of people. And do you need more than one plant?
Yes, so this one does need cross-pollinated. And there's male and female there's male and female vines. So you have to have a male and a female vine.
So you have to make sure that whoever's selling it to you knows how to tell the difference between the male and female vine. Can you tell?
I can tell if it flowers. As far as the vine's concerned, buying it, you just kind of have to trust them.
All right. And they're so big. I mean, I don't know that you'd want to buy more than two. Does that feel like you're gambling a little bit?
I think you could probably buy 4, and then as they're starting to get bigger and you find out which ones are the females and males, you could probably make some selections.
All right. So what kind of an environment do they need? Full sun?
They're good full sun. They can tolerate some shading. They grow on, think about like understory on trees, climbing up trees. But full sun will get you the best, prettiest berries.
And you said that the newer cultivars really focus on the fruit and the flavors. Are there a lot of options? What should we be looking for?
Yeah, there's slowly becoming more and more options. Like I said, there's actually active kiwi berry breeding research groups in the United States now, which is kind of fun. So they're breeding not just for color and kiwiness, but they're also trying to make the skin kind of a red color. So it's like, ooh, they're really pretty. It's also easier to tell if they're ripe if the skin turns red.
Do you have a preferred cultivar?
Right now, Geneva 3 is definitely one of the winners. We're also looking at a couple of different accessions, so hopefully some of those will be available in the next couple of years too that have that more red skin flesh.
Are they easy to find? Where do you get them?
Yeah, there's a lot of retailers online that sell them. Pretty much any of the big major or more interesting, I guess, fruit retailers sell them.
Can you find them at a nursery, or is it something that you actually have to mail order?
I would assume for fruit, you have to mail order them at this point in time, but you could probably find the foliage vines at different retailers.
All right. But if you want the fruit, you don't want those. So
Right. They're a little bit more bitter tasting.
All right. So you have to be kind of careful if you're willing to get into this business. And is there anyone actually growing them commercially in Iowa?
Yes, we actually have quite a few people. So hopefully this year at farmers markets, you might be able to find some people selling them. They typically come in right after strawberries, so early July.
And I was doing a little bit of research on these online, and I found people talking about them, as much as 8 years ago. I've never seen them. I've never heard of them. When did you first find out about them?
Actually, when I came to Iowa. So I mean, I was, like I said, I thought it was photoshopped. And then I actually tried some and I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so good. Why aren't more people growing them? Then I learned about the arbors and I was like, ah. So I understand why people aren't as interested in them because they have a lot of more legwork, but they are really, really good.
And it sounds like they're also beautiful. So even if you buy the plants to grow the fruit, this is also an aesthetic choice.
Yes, the vines are really pretty. And especially if you have like a really aesthetically pleasing arbor and have the vines go up, it is very beautiful.
And what do the flowers look like?
Oh, that's a really good question that I don't know off the top of my head. But they do flower.
All right. When you plant them, how many years does it take before you might have a harvest?
3 to 5 years typically.
And what time of this growing season are they ripe?
Typically after strawberries, so getting into like late June, early July. Some cultivars might be earlier or later, though, so definitely cultivar specific.
And when they do produce a crop, obviously, mileage may vary depending on the health of your plant and the size of your plant. How much of a crop can you get from one of these enormous vines?
You can get a lot from one vine, that's for sure. As they get larger and older, they'll produce even more and more fruit. So you can get quite a bit off of one vine. So more than a grapevine for sure.
Okay. And do they store well, or is this something that you would either eat fresh or take to the farmer's market fresh and share with friends?
I would think, from my experience, they're similar to strawberries. So they have a limited shelf life.
And you mentioned that they're breeding some to look more red when they ripen. How do you know if they're ripe if you don't have one of those varieties?
So that's one of the challenging parts about some of the current cultivars is they kind of turn this kind of yellowish color, but they're still pretty, they're still nice looking, but maybe they're not as aesthetically pleasing as a grape. So there is a little bit of that, especially like at a farmer's market or something. So if you had a redder or a cultivar with a blush, that might be more, might be more willing to try it.
All right. And I haven't looked around at all. I'm curious to try them, but is this something that people are making jam out of and creating recipes and baking them into coffee cake? Do you know?
Yeah. So there's definitely a concerted effort to get a jam recipe approved. So there is that happening in Iowa right now. It does make a very, very good jam. I think it's actually a little bit better than a regular kiwi from a store jam.
All right. And what kinds of neighbors do you think would do well? Where, if you have other fruit trees, is this something that you could put into an orchard if you built an arbor? Or is this something more like you would dedicate sort of a vineyard environment for?
Oh, no, it would be fine. One of the cool things about kiwi is it's a completely different species and genus of plant from most of our other fruit cultivars. It does not have a lot of cross diseases.
I think about kiwi as being tropical. How do these do well in Iowa?
They can go down to -40, no problem.
Really? So they're super
Yeah.
hardy. I'm surprised then that we don't see even more of them. You mentioned learning about them when you came to Iowa. Do you feel like this is something that we're just going to see a whole lot more of in coming years?
I think so. I think especially as the breeding programs kind of catch up, especially like making that more aesthetically pleasing skin color, I think that they'll become more and more popular.
When we plant something that comes from far away, of course, people are concerned that it may become invasive. Do we know that this is a controllable variety?
That is an excellent question that I do not know. I would assume that if you're growing it and harvesting all of the kiwi berries, then it's going to have less of a problem.
What are some of the challenges to growing them other than the space commitment?
Honestly, the space commitment is the biggest challenge. They really don't have a lot of disease problems. They're pretty. They grow really fast. They're said if they weren't ginormous, it would be probably already something we did normally.
What kind of category do you put these in? I mean, we've talked about honeyberries on the show in recent years. That's another fruit crop that is becoming more common, becoming more popular. If you had to put this sort of in a family of unique fruit crops, what would the other things in that family be?
They're definitely in my alternative fruit for Iowa category. So honeyberries, figs, American high bush cranberry, all kind of fit in there. Saskatoons. They're things that are maybe something you'd have a hard time finding at the grocery store. But more similar to honeyberries, I do think that they have the potential to have some commercial viability, especially since kids seem to really like them.
I can imagine that they would be very popular among kids. And the kiwi flavor, I know that kids often are turned off by the furry skin of the kiwi, but you said they taste the same as kiwis. I'm going to have to try to find these somewhere, Suzanne, and actually try them. But are they really, you can't tell the difference?
I mean, they're a little bit texturally different, but taste-wise, I think they're similar profile.
All right, we did hear from a grower in Des Moines, and he says, I would encourage people to be a little careful with hardy kiwis because they can be challenging at first. I've been trying to grow them for many years, and I have some vines that are doing great at this point, but I've lost more than half of the plants that I've planted, and I've not had flowers for more than 5 years, he says, which is a problem if you forgot to write down which is male and which is female. He says he's been planting Anna and Arctic Beauty. He's very excited about them, but he says they're not for the weak of heart. Do you have any advice for somebody like David to get through this process? Are there things that maybe he should be doing that could increase his possibility of success?
Yes, I will say I know about Anna. That one's one of the older cultivars. I do think maybe trying out some of the newer ones that are coming out might be more advantageous.
All right. And of course, if you're waiting 3 to 5 years to know if things are going to pay off, that can be a real challenge.
Yes.
Suzanne Slack is a fruit specialist and assistant professor of horticulture at Iowa State University. For more gardening information and tips, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Find out more at iowapublicradio.org/garden. Garden Variety is a production of Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension. It's produced by me, Erin Stile, Caitlin Troutman, and the Iowa Public Radio talk show team. For more garden goodness, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Just go to iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. See you next time.